Welcome back. You're listening to the discussion Innovation in Government, sponsored by Carahsoft on Federal News Network. I'm your host, Jason Miller. My guest today is Fred Butler, the Senior Director for Industry Strategy and Solutions at DocuSign. Now, Fred, before break, we were talking about a lot of the challenges agencies face, some of the trends you're seeing. You mentioned all this paper that's still out there, which is just amazing, how much money they're spending, how much time they're, I'll use in quotes here, wasting using paper. So here's my question, let's solve it. What are maybe some short-term things agencies can do to really think about their business processes and get off that paper?
Well, I would say every agency has a mission that they're trying to achieve. And with that mission, there are programs and activities that are being implemented. And I would start with the program management, from the appropriation to the closeout of these opportunities. There are workflows that can be improved, from the drafting of the statement of work to the signatures for approval to the application and the review of those applications from the technical expert panels. This is consistently done because the federal government is based on the FAR, and all of the federal acquisition regulations are similar across government. So thinking about procurement and the ways that procurement is managed, an excellent opportunity to get really big wins across each and every agency by thinking about those workflows and working hand in hand with the program teams to modify them in a way that generates change and effectiveness and efficiency.
You bring up a great point, the not just the federal acquisition regulations, the FAR, but also every contract has certain pieces to it that you're always going to do. And if you're still writing it out, handwriting it out, or typing it out, or printing it and sending it and scanning it, or whatever you're doing, that's such a huge burden. Where are agencies in that effort to modernize? I mean, again, every agency is different. I understand all that. But what are some of those areas you're seeing where they're still stuck? Is there a couple of them that would stand out?
Well, I would focus on where they're making strides. And
You're nicer than me.
I would say, because that's the example that we want to see more of. Where they are acquisitions, whether it's contracts, grants, interagency agreements, they all are a set of agreements. And when you think about those agreements, the agencies that are doing most effective activity in that area are really working with partners, both interagency, intra-agency, public-private partnerships. They're building on similar components of their missions and working strategically to work together to achieve a bit of each.
You mentioned program project management, you mentioned procurement, kind of related.
Yes.
The other piece that's probably really prime for this, and I see this a lot, is some of the other back office areas like HR and financial management.
Absolutely.
One of the big areas that I've seen over the years with, for instance, robotics process automation is financial management. They've seemed to, that CFO office really jumped in. Are you also starting to see CFO, HR excitement over this move?
Absolutely. And the HR is both at the front end and the back end. It's onboarding the new individuals in a way that is effective and streamlined and similar to what they're seeing in the private sector. And on the back end, retirement. Nothing better, reward than to have a seamless process at retirement where your paperwork is done, it is moved to the various relative agencies to ensure that your first payment is made at a correct time, that there's continuity of your health care going into retirement. I would say there's examples of agencies that are utilizing improvements in their HR process relative to performance. So they're able to track what are the goals that are being established, how is the employee meeting and exceeding those goals, and the employee being able to have that digital record with them to take to their next opportunity and or to their next agency in a more seamless manner than what I experienced when I was working with federal government.
The retirement piece is so difficult. That's the thing we hear all the time from folks. I'm about to retire, or I just retired and I haven't gotten my first annuity check yet. I think that frustration, because of that exact reason, my paperwork was in agency A, it's got to go to agency B, and for whatever reason, it's in a manila folder that's being done through interagency SneakerNet, right? The old SneakerNet.
Yes.
That's I think a huge area. Does that come up that, hey, when you talk to clients, hey, here's something you can get a quick win on. Here's how you can really impact your internal customers that so quickly and so positively.
I would say yes, and they're thinking about even more ways that they can facilitate change. A number of agencies have moved to utilizing some digital forms, but are still requiring a PDF to be sent, email, mail thereafter. When all of that can be done, authenticated in a more refined approach, but we're seeing examples of that occur. And I would say some of those examples are really being magnified by multiple solutions working together in an effective way. So you may have a couple different parties working with an agency to ensure that the solution that is provided is one that goes from A to Z. And kind of moving away from that process where you have an approach that is done and then they come back to the agency asking for additional resources. So really kind of thinking about the whole process and how the full workflow is going to be engaged in a refined manner is what we're seeing a lot more of now.
That piece is really important, that workflow, because again, you mentioned zero trust earlier. We're not going to spend too much time on zero trust because that's another one that we're all getting a little tired of, but it's not one thing. So when you talk about workflow, it's multiple pieces that all have that integration. And you mentioned partnerships earlier.
Yes.
I think that's a key. DocuSign's partnership with your partners from an industry side and your partners on the agency side. How are you ensuring that there's integration on both sides of the fence?
Well, I would start by saying DocuSign has more than 400 integrations in terms of software, and that really enables us to position with the agency, as I said a little bit earlier, to not really have them thinking about us wanting to rip and replace, but more so integrating the pieces and creating a new process that will facilitate and achieve the aims that they've identified. Now, one of our major partners is Salesforce. There's a huge presence in the federal government in terms of Salesforce. With DocuSign, we've done 10,000 plus instances within government to improve the process, achieve higher results. And I would say that there are others that are supporting us in the HR realm, whether it be Pega or Appian or others that, and there are too many to name, but one of the thing is that we're better together. It's not about us having all of the answers, but it's about being committed to helping government achieve the results that will help them move further towards achieving their mission.
And I think one of the pieces about that is, and it's good to know, is agencies have so much, we'll call it legacy technology.
Yes.
And as you said a couple of times, it's not a matter of coming in and ripping out whatever old system you had and putting the DocuSign system in or a partner system in. It's, okay, how do we integrate with that? Is that something that agencies are talking a lot about? Is that one of the biggest questions you have? Hey, we're already using, we'll use your example, Salesforce. How do you work within Salesforce? Do you get that question?
Absolutely. And I think one of the main things is the ability to really kind of address this whole piece about structured and unstructured data, and how effectively the two components together with Salesforce and DocuSign are really addressing those needs for the government in quite effective ways.
One of the things that we also, I think, should hit upon is, we talked a lot about the workflow piece. What are some of the other components of this workflow? Because I think people hear workflow, well, what do you mean? So e-signatures, that's what DocuSign's known for. Sure. But the workflow, what are the other areas that agencies maybe need help in, or what are the other agencies you're seeing a lot of requests about to help improve?
So when we think about the workflow, and as you were saying, the signature, there's a process prior to the signature and after the signature. There's the preparation of the documents prior to, and the workflow for revision of those documents, and then kind of sending those through the chain of command for approval before they're actually signed. Now, once they're signed, so you've prepared them, you've now signed them, then once they've been signed, you need to then act on them. So what are the next processes that have to occur relative to that action of the contract, the agreement, whatever that you're working on in terms of that particular program? And on the backside, I would say the most important thing is really the manage. Prepare, sign, act, manage. Prepare, sign, act, manage. And on the manage aspect, there's a huge value to the government to be able to look at the various different components of paper and agreements that they have across each of the components. Oftentimes, there is an ability to use analytics and be able to see where are we getting the most value, how is that, what processes are being put in place to achieve that value, who are some of the players that are contributing and generating the most bang for the constituent or the U.S. the American people and their resources in government. I think that there's a wealth of opportunity to think about program management across government because it's that one variable that is consistent in every agency. To achieve the mission, you have to implement programs, and to implement those programs effectively, you have to streamline your processes and more effectively use partners to help achieve your goals.
Fred, we got just a few seconds left now. What's the one big takeaway you want to leave the audience with about the future of where these digital tools are going? The one takeaway.
The one thing I would say is that we have a tremendous opportunity in front of us, that there are examples of how it's being done in agencies, and we implore individuals to reach out to us and let us help connect some of those dots together.
All right. I very much enjoyed this conversation. Unfortunately, we are out of time for today. So let me thank my guest. Fred Butler is the Senior Director for Industry Strategy and Solutions at DocuSign. Fred, thanks so much for taking the time.
Thank you so much for having us.
I'm Jason Miller, and you've been listening to the discussion Innovation in Government, sponsored by Carahsoft on Federal News Network. For more on this discussion, visit federalnewsnetwork.com and search innovation.